Most people in life are looking for how to make a life worth living and a life worth retiring to. And the truth is, how we make our living creates our retirement. And then there's that common joke of that heaven is the best retirement out of this world. And I probably said it wrong, but people know that joke and they know what it means. What that implies is that at some point we go back to God's house, if we're lucky. Yes, Jesus Christ died for everybody's sins, and that's a pretty well-known fact in a lot of religions. But what I'm talking about is what happens when we get there. People are always surprised when they end up in hell, and because they just thought they were the most marvelous person on the earth. And I would say, really, how did you decide that? How did you determine that? How did you judge that? Because I'm not really seeing your faith in the way that you walk and the way that you live. And here's the deal. You can claim to be religious. You can claim to have all this Bible verse in your knowledge. And I actually had police officers starting to quote all sorts of Bible verses at me when they were hauling me off because somebody lied about me. And I had no rights to say no because they just had a plan. They were going to work their fucking plan, and they didn't give a shit whether it was true or not. And that pissed me off. But in life, we have moments of time to speak the truth. People who are holy speak the truth. People who are holy know what is public information and what is private information. Our medical rights is totally, under the law, private information. But there are people and families who gossip and ruin people's lives and get them harmed, get them raped, get them despised, get them into compromise, and they do it because they want to play God in someone's life. Today's little audio cast, we're going to talk about playing God a little bit further. What I'm saying is, why do you want to play God in someone's life? Why do you want to ruin someone's life? Why do you want to lie in records? Did you do something immoral or illegal that makes you trying to protect yourself from your own stupidity of decision? You see, I once had someone go in and out of my apartment, and I could tell. Because where I placed things on my counter in my bathroom, in my way of making organization for my toothbrush and my airbrush and whatever else was on the counter, was monkeyed with, and somebody moved things around. And then I'd be looking in my trunks and I'd find things missing. Gifts that I had brought home from Japan. Special things I can never replace again. Completely missing. And then I make a comment on one of my social media accounts and poof, that magically they're back in the box that I just looked in earlier in that day after I came home from work. Now, who has the right to play in my apartment when I don't live with someone after the loss of my wife? I'd like to know, but who has keys to an apartment? Because there was nothing broken into that I could tell. And yet we can go to these dollar stores and we can see these little gadgets that somehow elude that they can open a door. And I thought, well, that's great if you've lost your key and you need help, but what about the immoral people who use that to steal from people? Isn't that the whole point of safety of a lock? Now, there's always a common joke in the industry of locks are only good against people who are honest. But if we have a society that's becoming more and more immoral, what it says to me is that we're losing God. What I see around the community here is apartment complexes are taking over churches. They're actually turning churches and probably what used to be Sunday school rooms into living quarters. They're buying up buildings. I didn't even know that was lawful or legal to do that. Because I presume that because it was a holy space, that at some point in history there was what on it? Well, what is underneath it would be a cemetery of some sorts, or possibly somewhere on the grounds the burial of someone who used to be a pastor or a preacher or a profound person of that community. And I believe there are some rules and laws that are healthy about not putting sleeping quarters over where the dead are buried for a lot of spiritual reasons. But what I'm really talking about is the loss of God, that people lose God to themselves. What I mean is, God gave us free will. But if we don't exercise proper free will, if we make choices that are illegal and immoral, we don't have the right to make upset in our mind at the person who we harmed with our illegal and immoral behavior. You made that choice. You made the choice to cross the line on God's laws, and you made the choice to cross the line on human laws or federal laws or sometimes international human rights treaties, which gives us a lot of clout in the world because we as American nation actually designed that thing. And we designed it based on our own constitution and our own amendments. So let's really talk about the most important amendment that everyone in the world can really get their head wrapped around without any disgruntlement, any misopinion, any kind of abuse of an idea. The Fourth Amendment is the one that probably everybody can get and everyone can understand, everyone can feel, everyone can have compassion for, because it's about having the right to our personhood, which is our physical body in every way that it is our body, right to our paperwork, which is our legal aspects of our life, of which we create records on for ourselves to create a long and safe life in this world of technology and abusers of life, and also our possessions, or what I like to call our property, and what the Fourth Amendment calls our property. That property could be land, I suppose. That property could be a building, I suppose. But it is also the possessions that we purchase with hard-earned dollars, and it's also the gifts that people give us from when we have our travels or when our friends come to see us. And it's also those birthday gifts, those Christmas gifts, those things that really mean something to our souls, things that we discover, things that the Lord leads us to in terms of our religious books, in terms of our libraries, in terms of our I don't know, our fashion for our home. What do they call it? Home decor. It doesn't really matter, but we own those things. And there's always some immoral person who's jealous, who's selfish, who wants to steal things. Sometimes they just want to do it because they're pissed at us, and they think, I'm just going to get back at you by taking this. No, what you did was perform an immoral act in front of God, an illegal act under the law, and you just thought you were going to get away with it, and maybe you did. Well, shame on you. Because what it starts to do is propel you towards immoral activity. Immoral activity, and you have to build one lie after another lie after another lie after another lie about what you think are your rights. And your rights only belong to you. Your rights are only about your right to your life. And right to life groups talk about the rights of an unborn child, which is somewhat truthful, and under God's house, somewhat untruthful. Because the Lord has understood and adjusted in time. The Lord is not dumb about technology, because the Lord's mind gifted that information to that human being who created that technology. Because if we're going to believe the major, most important principles of any of the religious works around the world, particularly the most famous, which is the Bible, and been translated into God knows how many languages, we have to accept that God makes everything and everyone. And nothing the Lord makes is unclean, is very clear in the Bible. And nothing the Lord makes is unknown to him. So let's be really righteous about this. That if you are not getting your life in a way you want it to be, maybe you've lost God. Maybe you forgot how to pray. Maybe you forgot how to praise the Lord, and maybe you forgot how to thank the Lord, and maybe you forgot everything about how God speaks to people. There are very famous pastors who have 100,000 people or more. I can't imagine how they sit in that Texas stadium with Joel Osteen, but the reality is they go for his message. They go to be uplifted in their soul. They go because he's a pretty great preacher for a fellow who just inherited the job, and he's worked at it really well. But in life, we have to look at, how do I live my life? How do I live my life before God? Because whether you believe in God or not, and this is the most comical thing to me, whether you believe in God or not, whether you're atheist or agnostic or just unsure about life, you're going to go back to God. And you're going to be standing there in front of those gates, in front of Archangel Gabriel. He's going to look at you. He's the communicator in the world. He's going to go, okay, account for yourself. I'm pretty sure that still happens today. And even though you might be saved, as people talk about it, it doesn't mean that God's going to automatically open those gates and say, come on and have the party with us. It might be that you'll be going to hell for some retraining about life. You see, we have reincarnation that most people in Christendom don't believe in, but I tell you, we have enough scientific proof that it proves that there is some sort of reincarnation. But there are people who sometimes get the gift of recalling that. It's to remind people of the past of where we've been, where we've come from, and how far we've achieved, how far we've struggled, how much we've struggled, how much blood, sweat, and tears, according to our American flag, have been, well, lost in lives for a long time, in wars and in peacetime. So we're in a time of peacetime. We're in a time of caring about the world. We're in a time when we need to do things that are refined. But if you've lost God, that's on you. It's not on anyone else. If you lie, if you steal, if you cheat, you've harmed you.